Hey there, Cavalcaders. This is the Cade Master, and today we're going to work on rebuilding a water pump. There's a water pump, and we are going to put a new shaft assembly and seal in it. Let me put a little more light on it there. And so we're going to take the impeller off, we're going to press the old one out, and then this is the shaft assembly that I manufacture. It's 3 bearings and it has a seal here. We're also going to put in a new mechanical seal here, a ceramic mechanical seal. That's new. And here's a rubber washer that we're going to put on that goes underneath this screw right here. This is a little jig I made to press the shaft in. You're probably not going to have one of those. That's fine. You can use a socket. I'll show you why we want to use that here. Tools, not too much. Hammer, flat-ended punch. This is a 3/8. It'll work. It'll get the job done. You're going to need a 10mm wrench. You're going to need a couple of flat blade screwdrivers, medium-sized. I use this tool to drive the seal in, but you know, you can. You don't have to have that. I do so many of them that I made the tool. Got a little gasket sealer here. I like the Ultimate. This is gray. You can use black. Doesn't really matter too much. You don't need very much of it, just a teeny bit. A little dielectric grease. When you go to press this shaft assembly in here, right here, this O-ring needs to be lubed well so that it doesn't skive when it goes in. So you just want to grease it up well. So anyway, we're going to, I'm going to put this on a tripod so it's a little easier to see what's going on here, and we're going to rebuild a water pump. Okay, I've got the water pump mounted in the vise. You don't have to do that, just makes it a little simpler. And we're going to take a 10mm wrench and we're going to put it on here, and we're going to take the bolt out. Put the light on there so you can see better. And when you take this bolt out, there are two things. There is a Belleville washer, and that Belleville washer has a curve in it, and you want it to curve like this so that it puts pressure around the outside. We're going to take that out. And there's the old rubber washer that we're going to replace. So we're going to take a hammer and we're going to take a screwdriver, and we're just going to take and knock that off there. Okay. And then we're going to take the impeller off, and to do that we're going to put a screwdriver under both sides like that. And here, we'll turn it this way. I'll turn the pump. So what we want to do is you want to put the screwdriver underneath one of these fins on both sides. So put a flat blade screwdriver there, put a flat blade screwdriver there, kind of knock them in, and then you're just going to push them down, and you're going to pry the impeller off. And there's the impeller. And this is the ceramic seal here that we're going to replace, and this is the other half of the ceramic seal that we're going to replace. So I'll be back in a minute. Okay, we're back on the water pump rebuild, and so we've got the impeller off. Here's the impeller. We've taken that off. And the next thing we have to do is we're going to have to press this shaft out. We're going to do that in a hydraulic press. It takes a lot of pressure. Never tried it in a vise. Don't know if it'll work or not, but we're going to move it over here to the hydraulic press, and we're going to put it in there, and we're going to press the shaft out. So let me set it up in the press, and we'll be right back. All right, we're back with the hydraulic press, and we got a couple parallels set underneath it so that the bearing assembly can come out. We've got a block there underneath the ram, and we're going to start pumping on it. And pretty soon, given enough pressure, we hear it start to move. So we're going to continue to press it out until that block comes all the way down and touches the pump, And that's not going to be quite far enough, so what we're going to do is we're going to retract the ram, and I'm going to put a bolt in, and we're going to finish it off. So just a second. Okay, this is just showing an ordinary 6mm, I don't know, maybe 20 or 25 millimeter long. It doesn't really matter. You just need a bolt in there so that you can press it further to get it to come completely out, because it's not completely out yet. So we're going to put our block back on top of it, and we're going to press it out. Okay, after we put the bolt in, we press that down, and we press the shaft assembly out. And you can see where this goober here is where the seal, the mechanical seal, has been leaking. There's that bolt. It's kind of stuck into the seal, but we're just going to we can just push it out of there. There's the bolt. And there's the water pump with the shaft out. So now we have to press this seal out. So we're going to flip it over, and we're going to put it in the vise, and we're going to take this flat-ended punch, and we're going to go down in there, and we're going to go down there, and we're just going to punch it out. So give it a few taps with a hammer, and it'll be out of there. All right, there is the mechanical seal that's been removed. Kind of destroyed it getting out, no big deal. Now the water pump has no seal in there, it's got no shaft in there. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to use a wire brush. I keep these small wire brushes around. We're going to clean all this surface off where this O-ring goes. We're going to clean inside the bore here. We're going to clean inside this bore. Just use brake cleaner is what I use. You can use whatever you want. We're just going to clean it up. And the other thing we need to clean is this hole right here is the weep hole. And this weep hole comes up here, and there's a hole right here. So what it does is if the seal starts to leak, it comes down this, turns 90 degrees, and goes into the engine block and leaks out, so you know that the seal is bad. So we're going to clean it all up, and then we'll start putting it back together. All right, we're back on the water pump rebuild, and it's got it cleaned up. Got all the goobers out of the hole, and actually had to put a wire through that weep hole there in order to get it cleaned out, but it's clean now. So what we need to do is we need to take this shaft assembly. This is the replacement shaft assembly. It's a little different than the original. It's got 3 bearings, and it has this collar, which has a seal to keep the water. If the water gets into here, it keeps it from getting into the bearings. So this O-ring seals. This O-ring seals in the bore. So what we need to do is we need to lubricate this O-ring. I'm going to use a little silicone grease. You don't have to use silicone grease. You can use probably any grease you want, but we're going to put a little bit of silicone grease on it so that it slides in there nicely and it doesn't, the O-ring doesn't get skived. So we're going to put that on there. And we're going to have to do this in the press. So we're going to put that in there like that. And I've made this little cap, and this little cap sits over the top of that so that the pressure is on the bearings and not on the end of the shaft. You don't want to press on the end of the shaft to press it in, because this is 2 pieces. This is a collar that has been silver soldered onto the center, and if you put too much pressure on it, you might collapse this. So you can use a socket. Just find a socket that fits inside there, and it can bear on the outside. So we're going to put that up in the press, and we're going to press it in until it stops, and we'll go set that up now. All right, we've got the water pump in the press with our shaft assembly and our collar to push down on the bearings, and we're going to start gently pushing that in. That O-ring, want that O-ring to slide in there and not skive off. And we're just going to gently pump it in there. bearings all in there. Like my press is leaking a little bit. And you'll feel it bottom out. And we'll release it. Take it out. And it's all the way in. And there's the shaft sticking out that side. Okay, so now we're going to put in the mechanical seal. This is mechanical seal. It basically has ceramic. It's got a spring and a boot, and it goes into the housing just like that. So what I like to do is I like to put a little bit of sealer around the edge of this. Not too much. There is a kind of a seal ring there, but I like to put a little sealer on it besides. So I'm going to use a little bit of the Ultimate Gray. Here's a tube that's been used quite a bit. We're just going to put a little bit on there and then we'll drive it in. Okay, we've got a little bit of sealer around the edge of that, and so we're going to put it in there like that. And then I actually have a tool that I use to do this with. It's just an old piece of fork tube that's been faced off in the lathe, and I use it to drive it in with. You can use a flat-ended punch, but you just need to get this flange clear down to where it's flat. So we're going to take a hammer and we're going to drive that in carefully, and I'll be back in a second. Alright, we've got the half of the seal, and you can see it. It's got spring loaded. It has a ceramic surface right here. So now we're going to take the other half of the seal, which is the mating half, which is also ceramic, and it goes into the back of the impeller. We're going to replace this one right there. So we're going to pop that out with a screwdriver, and we're going to clean it up, and then we're going to put this in there, and we're going to use a little sealer again, and I'll be back in just a second. Okay, so before we put this seal, I've cleaned this up now. I popped the old half of the seal out and cleaned it up. And before we actually put this in, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take the ceramic disc out of the rubber holder. And when you take the ceramic disc out, you're going to notice that on the back side it has a colored band, colored mark. That tells you that's the part that goes into the rubber. The surface here is what's going to go against the seal we've already put in the pump. So this little rubber seal goes in here, and that's supposed to seal this to this, but I don't trust it because I've seen it leak past the outside. So we're going to put a little bit of sealer down in this bore. Not very much. We're going to put a little bit of sealer down in this bore before we set this in, and we're going to put a little bit of sealer on the back side of this before we put it in. And don't need much, just a teeny bit, just so that we don't have a leak anywhere outside of this seal. We want the seal to seal, but we also don't want anything around the seal to leak. So we're going to put a little sealer on it. I'll be right back. Okay, we got some sealer put in the bore here, not very much, just need a little bit, and we're going to drop that piece of rubber down in there. We're going to gently put that in, and we have a little sealer on the back side of the ceramic seal, and we're going to drop it down in there inside the rubber seal, and we're going to push that into position. And what we're going to do is we're going to take my thumbs and put it on both sides, and we're going to press that in there. We're going to press most of that sealer out. We want the sealer pretty well compressed before we put this together. So I'm just going to take my thumbs and press it down real well. Just try not to, you have to be a little careful because this is ceramic and you can break it. So just gently do on both sides. All right, now we've got that pressed in there. I put my thumbs on it and pressed it down pretty well so that most of the sealer is out. Cleaned it up, all the excess sealer. Now we're going to prepare the bolt, and there's the washer that comes, and you're going to notice that on one side of the washer it's metal, and the metal side is going to go up. In other words, this surface here, the black surface, is going to go down against the top of the deal. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the bolt in there, and we're going to put just a little bit of sealer around the washer, and we're going to put a little bit of Loctite on. Alright, here's the screw. We've got a little bit of sealer to kind of fill that groove underneath the rubber washer. We put a dab of blue Loctite. I use the gel stuff. You can use whatever you want. And here is our impeller. So the impeller, there's two flats on the shaft, and there's two flats inside the impeller. So we're going to put the impeller on there, and we're going to line it up, and we're going to gently press that on there, and we may need to persuade it a little bit. Use my hand, and there we go, it's down. Now we're going to take our bolt that we have prepped here with the Loctite on it and the sealer, and we're going to thread it in to that hole. Make sure that the Belleville washer is on there, that metal washer, and make sure the cup is curved. The curve is up. So we're going to tighten that down by hand, and then we're going to put a 10mm wrench on it, and we're going to tighten it to a little tight, not too bad, and that is ready to go back in the bike. And you'll get a new O-ring that goes in this groove. And when you put the O-ring in, I highly suggest that you put some silicone grease on it so it stays in position while you're putting the pump back on. The other thing to remember is on the back side of the pump, there are two grooves. And there are two E-clips that go on there. So that inside E-clip, don't forget to put it on, because the sprocket goes on there, and the inside E-clip prevents the sprocket from going too far in, and of course the outside E-clip keeps it from going too far out. There is the hole there's for the drive pin, of course, when you put the sprocket on, but do not forget that inside E-clip that goes on that groove right there. Do not forget to put that in, because that keeps the sprocket from moving too far. And I get pumps all the time back from guys as cores that E-clip is still on there, which means they put it back together without the E-clip. So just make sure that you take it off your old shaft and put it on your new one, and you should be good to go. That's it.